So my name is Anna, and I am a planetarian. I'm very proud to be a planetarian. However, I do not like the word planetarium. People have expectations. Most people think there are planets in the planetarium, which is a rather reasonable expectations. I have had the questions, oh, so you work at the botanical gardens. How did you come to that? Oh, plants. No plants in the planetarium. Okay, sure. But the planetarium is a word that has been around for a while, and it's hard to let go of it because it has history, but it doesn't really describe what we do today. I mean, historically, we have something like this. Can I have a darker room, maybe? There is some sort of closed blinds, maybe. No, that didn't do anything. Yes. Huh. Oh my God. Okay. We'll see what happens. Yes. Sorry about that. So you expect an optomechanical projector in the middle of a dome, and this then is a tool that is designed for one single purpose, and that is to recreate the night sky as seen from Earth. And for a very long time, this is also what we had here at Lund Observatory. We had an optomechanical projector, people could sit down, there would be a dome that would fall over the audience, and we would talk about constellations in the night sky and all of that, and shoo! The planetarium is turning 40 this year, by the way. We opened in 1978. Of course, technology has advanced, and the optomechanical projectors have become oh so impressive nowadays. If you have a chance to see one of those new optomechanical projectors where you have fiber optics going to every single star, like, wow. But there are very, very few pure optomechanical planetariums built nowadays, if any, because people want to do more. It's not enough just to be able to see the night sky. So even if you have an optomechanical planetarium, you do want digital projection as well. So you install digital projectors. The problem when you go digital is the contrast with the digital projectors. That is to say, black isn't black anymore because projectors leak light. So you get this grayish night sky, and they do try, and sure, that's fine. And if you have a really fancy optomechanical projector, you can sort of fade out the stars so that they don't lie on top of your projected horizon. But as soon as you do anything other than visualize the night sky, you have to take out, or at least turn off the optomechanical projector and just go digital. There are some really fancy installations in these hybrid planetaria where you have both the fiber optics or the actual projector and then the digital projectors. It's also a question of getting them to work together absolutely seamlessly, and when you take off the Earth, then the optomechanically projected stars need to fade into the digital stars, which is tricky to do. So there are extremely many planetarias that have gone over to just being digital. And as soon as you drop the optomechanical projectors, it's an immersive environment. It's sort of like VR, except it takes more people. Where VR only takes one person, a dome will seat many more. And if you want to have it interactive, you have to decide who is going to be in control. Once you start going digital, then you can start flying. Flying through data, flying through the solar system, flying through the galaxy. And that means you get something on the dome that is called, by planetarians, the sweet spot. That is the point to which you are flying, or from where you're flying if you're backing up. And it becomes this magical spot, and suddenly you make your audience face forward. Before, everyone was seated in a circle and people would turn around and, ooh, stars everywhere, shoo-hoo. But now you're flying, and then you want to pinpoint where you're flying to. And that also leads to people tilting their domes, which is ergonomical, sure. Then people don't have to get shoulder aches, headaches. But suddenly, you've gone away from this planetarium, the original planetarium where you were looking at the night sky as seen from Earth. Because, well, okay, either you have to project the Earth so that the lower half of the dome is sort of showing the Earth, or you have to tilt the Earth so the horizon lands on the edge of the dome, and then if you have some people standing around or trees or any sort of horizon, everything gets leaning quite a bit. But you do have the advantage when you lean your dome that suddenly you have discouraged people to look behind them. It becomes more like a screen. And then you can start installing 3D planetariums. And when you have 3D technology, well, 3D technology is really meant for flat screens because you want people to be sitting, looking forward, don't tilt your head, because then you can define a right channel and a left channel that will go into your right and left eye, and everything works. So you have two projectors, one for your left eye or right eye, or you have a single projector and you have defined certain color bands that are being let into your right eye and your left eye. Installing 3D technology in a planetarium requires glasses. And then why on earth did you pay for the entire dome? You can't see it anyway because you put glasses on your audience. So they can only see the square in front of them. So I'm not super positive about 3D technology in planetarium. Yes, you can do fancy things. The rhinoceros looks out of the screen or whatever. But you don't have the same immersive sensation that you can see everything. And if you have your 3D glasses on and you start turning your head, nothing will work because your eyes aren't aligned with the left and right channel anymore. So you're supposed to be looking forward at your sweet spot, 45 degrees up on the dome, where you're flying. Why are you looking anywhere else? Then there are the additional problems with 3D technology that you have to maintain the glasses, you have to make sure they are charged or change the batteries, you have to clean them before each use. They can be stolen, they can be broken, you keep having to buy new ones. So, I don't know. I don't regret not installing 3D technology at the Lund University Planetarium. It's fancy, but unnecessary for a planetarium, I think. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to partake in discussions. How about interactive planetariums? So, the beauty of planetariums is that it's a shared experience, that you have more people under the dome than you have, for example, with VR classes. So if you want to have an interactive dome, then, I don't know, we discussed it, someone discussed it with me over lunch, that, and then you can have all the Klingons attack you in space, and everyone reaches under this chair and takes up the guns and starts shooting Klingons. Of course you can develop games on a dome just as well as you can in any other digital tool. But classically, planetariums are more angled towards sciences and education. So if I think about what people have installed, some people have panels in the chairs, so you can query the audience, so who wants to fly to Mars and who wants to fly to Saturn, and then people can choose themselves. Some planetariums have installed Microsoft Kinect, and then you can invite someone from the audience to come up and spread out your hands and start flying, and the planetarium flies with me, and you can fly through the rings of Saturn, and it's a wow experience. But then, it's one person is in charge, basically. But absolutely, you can install all sorts of fancy things under your dome. Why not? So the question is, which is better, VR or a dome? That is the basic questions. The way I see it is that there are some downsides to the VR. You have isolated people from one another. If you get a family to a planetarium or a dome of any sort, then it's a shared experience and they all see the same thing, and you can have your kid in your lap and say, hey, look over there, that's a shooting star or something. Whereas if you have VR, everyone has their own little VR device, and you can try to make the environment so that everyone is partaking in it together at some sort. But you've isolated people. I don't like that. With VR glasses, you feel like you've stepped whole body into a virtual world, but under a dome, your actual whole body is inside this virtual environment, which, you can still see your fingers and your toes, and you still feel like you're floating in space. And then there is the part, but I mean, VR is good too. I mean, the thing about VR is that not everyone happens to live right next to a planetarium. I do, but yeah, you do. So if you have, especially the cheaper cardboard VRs or something, you can take it places where there isn't a planetarium. You can expose people to these virtual environments without having to construct a whole dome. Of course, on the other hand, there are also portable planetariums. Basically tents. I mean, you hook it up to a fan, you put a little bit of overpressure into your dome, and you put a projector in the center, and you can take it anywhere. There is a portable planetarium up at Kristianstad Högskola, so I don't know what they're called in English. University College of Kristianstad? I don't know. Anyway, that can be taken out to schools, but even the portable planetariums have a downside in that you can't really, well, if it's just a tent with overpressure, you need somewhere that without wind. You can't put it up outside, because if the wind comes, your dome will warp and you can't focus properly. And if you want to have it inside, you have to have a ceiling height of at least 3.5 meters. Shoo! Then there's the question of identity. Planetarias have a different identity because of their history. That because we started in science education, even if we can do everything else today, we've inherited that identity. People have an expectations that they're there to learn something. Whereas with VR, and this has been mentioned before, the identity of VR is still the first thing that pops to people's mind is, oh, gaming. And sure, that's fine. But for me, who works for the university and wants people to learn something, I like my planetarium. Does anyone else want to comment on which is better? No, that's fine. So what we do is really, we communicate science, but it's a storytelling. It's a guided experience. You get your little wow, look at that, and you feel like you've gained something at the end of the hour or two that you've spent at the planetarium. And we have more control somehow, or maybe, I mean, people were talking about these guided journeys through the data in the VR universe, but here it's usually we have a guide at the planetarium, we have an experience. And there are some fantastic planetarium installations all around. Of course, have you seen this one? This is on the Queen Mary 2 cruise ship. Basically, there's a stage and they have shows. But they can, if they want to, they have a dome that is hidden in the ceiling. And when the dome comes down, it will cover only the red seats. So if you're seated in the red seat, suddenly you're in a planetarium. Why not? It has become slightly popular to install planetariums in shopping malls nowadays. But I doubt they have astronomers guiding the shows. I'm guessing it's more just, here is a video and some planetarium show they've bought in, and yes, that's fine. Let's all go visit the reef or something. I like this one. This is in Estonia, and it's tiny. It's a 5-meter sphere, but it has a 270-degree projection. So it only has 15 seats, but it has a balcony. And you can look over the balcony, and you can look down at the planet and fly over it and fly wherever you want to. And it's also a hybrid planetarium. So they have 2 of these megastar balls, one up and one down under the balcony to project the star field, and then you can just fly through space. And then they also have a Uniview installation for the digital aspect. So I've never been there. But I like it still. I know the guys that are working there. So my planetarium is 40 years, as I mentioned. We've been installed in 3 different locations in Lund. We were at the old observatory in Stadsparken for many years, from 1978 until 2000 or 2001, when we moved to the Lund Observatory, the current location of Lund Observatory, which is Holukatan 27. There were plenty of ideas of how to set up the planetarium there, but none of them really made it. So it ended up with the planetarium being set up at the old water tower, which wasn't a good place for having any sort of outreach program. But in 2009, when Vattenhallen was started, then they contacted the Faculty of Science and asked us if we would like to join them. So we set up the planetarium at Vattenhallen, and for a couple of years we were running with the old optomechanical projector before everything went digital. So we've had this digital installation since 2012, and then it's just a question of install a big ass pretty projector, costs 100,000 euros. The lens on top is another 100,000 euros, and it is not insured. And then you have a few computers taking care of the digital universe, and then whatever you put into your digital universe, that is up to you. If you want to visualize molecules, go ahead, visualize molecules. If you want to visualize the human body, sure, we can fly through the human body. If you want to visualize galaxies, that's fine too. We have a lot of, we do a lot of different things. We're open to the public, so families can come and be inspired. We get school classes. We also have educate teachers. We have a program where secondary school kids can come in and make their own planetarium show. So they do programming in the planetarium. It's mostly cut and paste. So, I show them code and they can edit the code, oh, let's fly to Jupiter. Let's, I don't know, put up this 3D model of Hubble and look at something. It's very free, and half of the shows are always about Mars. And then we do all of the other things that the university does, NMT and Culture Night and Researchers Night and all sorts of things. And maybe just because I'm me or we are us, we do quite a bit of show production. For the old optomechanical projector, I tried to count how many shows we'd made, and I think I came up with 26. 22 were done before my time, and I did 4 of them. And then with the digital planetarium, it's so hard to count, because I made a show once when the biology department wanted to come and discuss how different animals see the night sky and other wavelengths. Okay, I had it once. Should I count that? But none of them have ever been shared with other planetaria because they're all in Swedish. Maybe that'll change when Wisdom comes along and there will be domes all over Sweden. But so far, these are my own, and you can only see them here. Talking about Wisdom, should we say a few words about Wisdom? Do you have any questions about the Lund University Planetarium? Mike, yes.
Yeah. So Anna, can you say something about maybe you did it, but the throughput, how many people visit?
Oh, I had some graph here. We're at about 14,000 visitors per year right now. It's a little bit unrealistic because we had the LU 350 celebration last year with a lot of free events. People tend to come in mass when everything's free. So I don't think I'm going to get to quite 14,000 this year. Also because I did an upgrade of all the servers, so I was closed for 2 weeks. But yeah, it's not just about the statistics though, because you can up the statistics by just running culture night and everyone comes in for free and more visitors and la la la. From a university's point of view, it's quality that matters. So how many high school students come through and how much do I inspire them to actually sign up for courses? So that's important. So my job is not just to bump up the statistics, I would say. At least that's how I define my job. Yes?
I follow up on that question. Is there any any research on the qualitative aspects of your outreach activities?
We have had research at the planetarium, but it's not the type of research you would think. We once had dung beetles from Africa flown in to run around in my planetarium. This was Marie Takke. She wanted to know if they would get confused if I turned on and off the Milky Way and if I rotated the sky and how much we could confuse dung beetles, basically. I also had her PhD student, no, her postdoc through the planetarium at some point, because there is quite a bit of this research where you take animals to planetaria and see night active animals and study the animals. And he wanted to standardize the settings of planetaria so you could compare the research being done. So he was using my planetarium quite a bit for that. Also comparing it to the night sky in different wavelengths and see if the night sky you are representing in the planetaria is actually the same as the animals are seeing. Because even if it's set to our eyes to be quite similar, then animals could be more sensitive to infrared light or ultraviolet light than are they really seeing the same thing? So he was doing work on that. So yes, we've had research in the planetarium, just different research. So
can you confuse a dung beetle? I need closure on that.
When you turn off enough lights, then yes. There was cut off everything that had magnitude above 2, so all the bright stars, and then there was the Milky Way on and off, and there was also a question of the moon in different phases. I don't really remember. This was years ago. But she made me try all sorts of things, and I sat there and, hoped they wouldn't get loose. Any more questions? One thing I can say about my planetarium. Technically, it is called, well, depends on who you ask, but Olof Sterner, who was the dean of the natural science faculty, he told me that in Swedish, at least, it's called the Naturvetenskapliga fakultetens planetarium. In English, I tend to say the Lund University Planetarium because then I'm talking to an international audience and they'll just get confused if I talk about the Department of Science. But that means that I have a vision and I really try of doing more than just astronomy. I mean, we have particle physics in a few shows. Biology, we have a show about seeing, about the human eye and how seeing works and the brain and the cells, and I'm not an expert on biology, but we have a show on it. And I've always wanted to make geology shows. And if anyone wants to involve the Lund University Planetarium in their outreach, then just talk to me. I mean, any 3D model, for example, should work in the simulation software. And then it's just a question of immersive storytelling, making a manuscript, guiding people through it, selecting the music, getting in a actor to read the manuscript, and making a show, basically. It's not complicated, it just takes a little time. But we can do it, right? More questions? Shall we talk about wisdom?
I've got one quick one.
Yes.
So for some of the stuff that we were showing in the demos,
Yep.
I mean, is it possible to actually translate that to a planetarium setting? Because obviously, when I demonstrate this in a talk, we take the mobile rig with us, and they look at the screen, and they see whatever the person's doing in VR, but it's still essentially 2D or whatever. But is it possible to translate it across to a planetarium setting? So to actually do a scientific talk at a planetarium, kind of live, as it were.
Probably. I'm going to demonstrate the software after I talk about Wisdom, so you can see what it looks like. But it depends on what format is your data in, and it probably requires some scripting beforehand. So even if it's live, you've made yourself some buttons, I would like to highlight this data, or I would like to fly through it in a nice, pleasing way. Because even if you fly manually, it's a little bit, especially when you're in front of an audience and you're presenting, then it's just nice to have things prepared like that. It's also quite, when you talk about, there's different planetariums everywhere, and I was talking to Florent about this. You wanted to present something at a planetarium somewhere else, and I immediately said, no problem, let's just render it out. I can make a full dome show of it, because that's the easiest way to take things between planetaria. Because in my planetarium, I have a single projector, but that single projector doesn't take a single output from a single computer, because the resolution is too high on the projector. So before my upgrade, I had 4 computers, one taking care of each quadrant on the dome. And that means that every video show I had, I would slice into 4 pieces for each of my computers. And that was the way my particular planetarium was set up. I also chose to rotate my projector 90 degrees. So even if I'm using the same projector as, for example, London, they haven't rotated their projector, so they would have to slice their shows differently. Now with the upgrade, I have 2 graphics cards in each computer. So I have 4 graphics cards, but 2 computers, one front, one back. So I had to reslice all of my shows. In Norrköping, they have 6 projectors, 2 up and then 4 along the side. So they would have to slice all of their shows differently. So we do talk between planetaria, but it's a little bit difficult. But for just data, we could import it into my particular simulation software and do some flying sequences. And for any planetaria using the same software, that would be easy to transfer. But if they're using different software, then it's easier to transport movies.
But I assume there's also a cost associated with this as well.
Yeah, of course.
Have you got a menu, or just contacts you?
The Lund University Planetarium is a single-person operation. Okay. If the dome needs to be painted, I'm painting it. If anything needs to be programmed, I'm programming it.
Fair enough.
I have an army of students that help me run most of the shows, but the practical stuff is all me. So Mats Fastrup was going to be with us today, but he isn't. And well, since I didn't want to talk about my own planetarium for way too long, slideshow, that's what I'm looking for. We were going to mention this also. Does everyone know about Wisdom? How many people know about Wisdom? A few have mentioned it, heard it mentioned. Okay. So, Norrköping Science Center, Visualization Center, they had this idea that they wanted to upgrade and get new servers and new projectors, and started talking to the Knut and Allen Wallenberg Foundation, because the Knut and Allen Wallenberg Foundation was turning 100, about funding. And the Knut and Allen Wallenberg Foundation, they thought that they would rather give more money to more people. So in the end, it was 5 science centers that applied together to get domes across Sweden. And for Norrköping, they already have their planetarium, and Umeå had an old Digistar 2 installation. So those 2 are getting upgrades. Stockholm had something, but they are building new stuff, isn't it? Are they? Yes. Yeah, Göteborg and Malmö, they have never had domes, so they're getting completely new installations. But all in all, these 5 science centers then, and then it's Umevatoriet, Malmö Museet, Tekniska Museet, Universium, and Norrköping Visualisation Center. They got from KAW 150 million Swedish kronor, which then goes for content, 50 million. So all people that are looking for content, there is the funding, there is the resources. You know, all those frustrated researchers that don't want to do stuff like themselves, you know, make them do it. And then each science center gets 20 million to actually build the domes. But they're doing it separately, so this will not be a copy-paste solution across Sweden. Everyone has their own idea of what they want to use their money for. Of course, they have the same vision that science centers usually do. They want to create interest in technology, and they want people to learn something, and they want to be on the front edge of technology and do all the things that everyone wants to do. Do you want to stand here with me and say something, or I just... Come. Sure. Come. You're involved. You're way, way more involved in this project than I am.
Maybe I am.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, when talking to the people responsible for the Visdom part of this project, it's pretty clear that they talk a lot about creating a meeting place and to some extent focus on kids and young people who are not so likely to come in contact with a science center, for example. So a little bit break out of the Lund bubble, if you want, focusing more on, I mean, kids in the Malmö region. That's something they are pushing hard for, and which I myself find extremely interesting.
At the same time, there was that critique at the Wisdom meeting in Norrköping that the rural areas would not get any benefits from this project, that you had to live in one of the urban, well, in Umeå. So it was really focused on Malmö, Göteborg, and Stockholm.
I agree with that.
And they talked about ideas like, oh, maybe they should also invest in some portable planetariums to go out or something, but I don't think that's within the current budget, at least.
No, but it's a very good point, actually.
Yeah.
That they had. Yeah.
But, oh, sorry. Here. It's all about being impressive. Aren't you inspired? But I mean, one point that this makes is that these immersive environments, like Planetaria, they are very good at showing us the things that are too big or too small, or too fast, or too slow for us to perceive.
Or too invisible.
Or too invisible that aren't at wavelengths we actually can perceive. And maybe it's just me, but much of the VR content being, at least being commercially made, is all at this 1 meter scale. And now you are using the VR technology to look at very big things and very small things. And then you're welcome to the planetarium world. Finally doing something. But yeah, seeing is a very, very important sense. And it also, I mean, when we talk to our peers, as mentioned, we want to be talking the same language. But seeing is, visualization is a language that we tend to all understand. So these are all very inspirational. And I'm in Norrköping, which is somewhat leading this project, although the other science centers can do whatever they want with their share of the money. They have quite a bit of experience with this, with science communication, with visualization, and with trying to incorporate real research in, with visualization. But that doesn't mean we can't do it too. And of course, it's all about getting people to the university, getting people, children, to pursue science as a career, to get the next generation involved. That is. So, wisdom, a spice and in dialogue with the school, academy, businesses, development. So they want to involve everyone, and they want people to meet. And right now, they really have grand plans. They haven't narrowed, they haven't cut anyone out. They want to do it all. I don't see how you have enough hours in the day and days in a year, but good for them. I really hope they succeed. It'll be really cool to see what becomes of it. So, do you want to?
Yeah, I actually could feel something in there, maybe on the grand scale of it all. That, I mean, they have the money for the equipment from the Wallenberg family. Malmö, the town of Malmö is helping with the building. And the Wallenbergs are also giving money for content. But how about the activities? I mean, getting money for researchers to run activities, hackathons with all sorts of people, and so on and so forth. So actually, the project manager, Genti, is right now trying to set up an application for getting money from, let's see if I can remember what it's called, Swedish Agency for Economical and Regional Growth, I think it's called. Yeah. So there will be an application submitted sometimes during the summer. And where they're trying to...
application that is submitted today, and that's why Mats isn't here?
No, it's not today,
but
I think he's very involved in actually writing it. And I know Gent is a bit... He's been sending me 10,000 emails the last 48 hours, so I feel a bit guilty. I should really try to talk to him. Because they're trying to get Malmö University and Lund University on the train. Involve universities in different ways, and also companies and other organizations. Yep. So it's like you said, they have really huge plans.
Yes.
So they probably need to focus a little bit.
A little bit. And it's also, I told Mats to come to IPS, which is the International Planetarium Society meeting in a couple of weeks. So he will get some down-to-earth advice probably there. Because there are people that have had these ideas before. I heard at one of their meetings that they want to have a versatile layout, be able to roll out the chairs, put in tables or something, have flexible environment. And others planetaria have tried this before, and they should get
but
some
that's typical
advice.
Malmö culture. They love that. They love to be able to roll their furniture around. So.
Okay. Sure. But then you have to have somewhere to store it, and you also take out operational time from the planetarium as you are rearranging everything. So absolutely, go for it. I look forward to see what's happening.
Do you need a dome for that?
For?
All of that? Any of that?
A dome for?
Seeing insect up close? Anything like that?
kind of things will be there? There will be a dome, there will be tablets, there will be just everything.
I think it's a very
The-
open matter right now, but the initial discussions have involved like some kind of ecosystem of stuff, not just the dome. At least that's something I've been pushing a lot for, that the dome is fine. It's a really nice piece of machinery, but I don't think it's like one size fits all. I don't think there is one tool that solves all the problems. I think to make this work, you need really a toolbox, and you need to have like an ecosystem of different things that work together. So maybe you could have more interactive sessions in VR or AR, and then you go into the Doom and you experience something together, and then maybe back to VR or AR, and then maybe you just sit down and read a book or have a group exercise or whatever. So I really don't believe in this Swiss Army knife idea that there is a tool that solves all the problems.
Yeah, and then there is, I mean, as I said, the Visdomes will not be identical. I mean, Visualisation, they have gotten much further with their description and applications and process, because they have the history of, they already had a dome that they are now discarding for this new one. So they already know what they want, and they are going to build whatever they want, and it's going to be completely different to what we are getting here in Malmö, which is going to be completely different from what's going to happen in Göteborg. So that's just the way things are. I have 5 more minutes, so I was thinking that I could show you the software I'm using, the simulation software. And I would say that there are about 4 companies that are making software that are up to my standards in the world. And there is Evans and Sutherland, which have their newest Digitar 6. There is the Swedish Skiss, which have Uniview, which is almost good enough. There's RC Cosmos, which is a French company with their Sky Explorer 4. And they are using, for the astronomers in the group, a Besançon model to simulate the entire galaxy, because they are very close to Paris Observatory. And then I have the Digital Skies Dark Matter software. I am the first one, at least in Europe, to go over to this software, possibly the world, because I was so keen on trying new things because I'm a horrible person. So, I mean, it's been installed in Warsaw for 2 years, and it's installed in London, but they are too... They lack the courage to just plunge in and see what happens and hope for the best, the way I did it. So, of course, this is a representation of what's happening on the dome. And on the top, you have sort of basic controls, because this is a simulated universe, and you can be wherever you want. You want to define a center of your universe, and right now that is Earth, which is up there. And then where are you with respect to Earth? Well, you are at these coordinates on the Earth, and we are 500 meters above sea level. That's where I'm simulating I am. And then I have the date and time that I am currently simulating on the dome. And if I start manually flying, then I get some other latitude, longitude, and I'm somewhere else. Of course, I can't see that. So if I go distance fly, and okay, so now I'm some megameters away, and then I want to face object. Okay, now I'm cheating because I'm using code. Hey, my object. I have. And yes, you can do things manually, but it's usually better to, I don't know, have something prepared. The software manufacturers have made me a nice little data set explorer that I never use, but I don't know, other people might. So I can quickly go to, I don't know, I want to see Phobos. So I go and fly to Phobos. Shoo! Flying in a virtual environment, or in space, is really, really tricky, because you're always going to give the wrong perception to people about how close or far away things are. I mean, now I did a soft fly away from Earth, and then I really quickly went to Phobos, and then I flew softly to Phobos. I can go to anywhere else. So Mars is around here somewhere. I only have to turn around. Hey, Mars, why not? So what do you want to see? I never use this, really. What I like to use is I like to use code. So if I want to fly to Earth, I make myself a little program. So just this line, scene camera fly to Earth, orient south down with this altitude, and then I can run it, and then Earth comes in within 5 seconds. Hey Earth, I'm way too close and I'm on the night side. So let's orbit Earth. I can do that manually. And sunrise. Shoo-hoo! But so all of this code is all fine and good. It's not that complicated. It takes a little bit of time to learn the finer aspects of it, to do pretty flying. So for example, if I want to fly through the ISS, then that is basically a whole bunch of where I want to be. Okay, yes, I started off at this wrong side of the Earth. Sorry about that. Yes, I didn't load the ISS. I started at the wrong button. I need to load the ISS. That means I need this control page and ISS. Where's my ISS? Here, walk in. So that's the thing that actually loads the ISS spacecraft and interior and everything else. And when I have loaded that, then I can go to the ISS. Nope. Abort. Didn't I? Here we go. There is something called the asset manager, and this is where I add all my assets. And this is where if I had data from other scientists, 3D data, anything else, then I can, I'm just gonna fly through the ISS while explaining that. My asset manager, hey my asset manager. So, irrespective if it's movies or where, oh, come on. So hey ISS. So I want to fly in the cupola and go in, and this is running on my laptop. It's slightly smoother in the planetarium, but of course I could fly through the walls if I'm not careful, which is why I like to not do this manually. But I mean, the same is true for any. If I have a model of a human skeleton or the DNA or any spacecraft or telescope, I can just as well incorporate that into my narrative. And as soon as you add music and a script, it's a show. So, any questions? Because I have 1 minute left and I don't know what you want to see. No. Mars, okay. Oh, I can show you one thing. So,
how new are, I mean, the textures of the planets, how updated are they? Like Pluto, for example.
Pluto has the New Horizons texture, absolutely. Dawn has, no, the Ceres has the Dawn texture. So I get updates fairly often to the system, and I just overinstall everything, and it's relatively good. The thing that's missing is the Gaia data, because Gaia data is huge. Of course, when I had all the software manufacturers visiting last September, I told them, don't worry about the Gaia data, take the Tico Gaia data, because at least 2 million sources are slightly better than 2 billion sources. I was going to show you, this is a show that I did not, that I did not do myself, because this is one of those secondary school kids that did this. So you get a nice little, and it goes to Mars on the 3rd button, so that's why I'm doing it. So you get a night, and you get some, can I skip this part? So this is just constellations, la 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 la. Yeah, I can skip this button. So you have night sky and then you fly to Mars. And if we were at the planetarium, there would be music, but I haven't installed the music on my laptop, so you don't get any music. And this flying they did. I mean, we did trial and error, basically, fly right, fly left, and it gives them, I mean, I often get girls, because girls are afraid of programming and they like planets, and then they get to the planetarium and I'm a terrible person and say, okay, now we'll do programming. And they're like, oh my God. So it's good for them. And there's music and you fly to Mars, and which takes a little while, and then you have the curiosity model, which is nice. And then I think it's a fade to the Curiosity landing site, and it's all driving on Mars. And if I go to, so basically all these button pages that I'm showing here, this is just free, you know, I make as many buttons as I want and I put whatever code I want into them. And I have endless amounts of them, which is shown here. And somewhere I have something that is called Spacecrafts Mars-based. OPRS. Okay. SP, I can find this. Ah, there we go. Spacecraft Mars-based. Sorry. Don't crash on me. Please. Oh, I knew it. I will stop talking, I promise. And there, I can control the stuff. Whee! Shoo! Oh, the interactiveness. So yes, we can. Which button is that again? Again, there's this one also. Wee, wee. But yeah, usually when I have many of my shows are pre-made, so I mean I program them beforehand. I made a manuscript. Okay, so real-time simulation goes down, video simulation goes up, and then you have something like that. Shoo, why not? The direct command, slightly lower. Questions? It's fun to play with, but it's also commercially made, so it's simple enough that I can give it to high school students and they can play with it and it's fine. And I try to encourage my university students to play with it too, but I would probably say I'm the expert. Should I stop talking?
Yeah, we want to.
Unless we have.
Round of applause.
Oh, thank you. Yes.